At my networking event, my father-in-law said, "You should be grateful we even let you use our last name." I clinked my champagne glass and said, "That's funny, because today I made it my brand." I met Miles when I was 29. I had just started working as a junior account executive at a boutique marketing firm in Soho. I was fresh out of grad school, living in a fourth-floor walk-up in Queens that reeked of fried onions and bleach. I commuted 90 minutes a day. I took side gigs designing logos and PowerPoints for people on Craigslist. I was exhausted. I was hungry. I had no safety net, no connections, just a determination not to end up stuck in my small hometown of Scroon Lake, New York. Miles was the opposite of everything I knew. He was tall, confident, and charismatic. The kind of man who orders a martini without looking at the menu. He came from old money. His family had been in finance, real estate, and city politics for 3 generations. The Lawrence name opened doors on Park Avenue. I remember thinking he looked like someone out of a Ralph Lauren ad the first time I saw him. We met at a client launch party. He told me he admired my confidence. That I had fire in my eyes. I was flattered. No one had ever described me like that before. Within 6 months, we were serious. A year later, we were engaged. I was in love. He said all the right things. Promised to support me. Believed in my ambition. I thought we were equals. It didn't occur to me that he liked that I had to work twice as hard. That it made him feel superior. Our wedding was at his parents' estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. You know the kind of place where the driveway alone feels like it needs its own zip code? That. Tents, crystal, a 5-tier cake, a quartet playing Vivaldi. Everyone looked like they were plucked from a town and country spread. Everyone except my parents, who looked completely overwhelmed but proud. My dad wore a suit 2 sizes too big. My mom kept whispering, "This is something else, isn't it?" Miles' mother, Beatrice, smiled at me like a pageant judge. His father, Charles Sr., didn't say a word to me the entire wedding night. Not a congratulations, not even a "you look lovely." He just nodded. Barely. I brushed it off. I told myself they were just formal. Or shy. Or overwhelmed. Spoiler, they were none of those things. After the honeymoon, I returned to work. Miles, on the other hand, left his job. He said he needed a break from the corporate grind. He'd consult here and there, but mostly he went to lunches, played squash, and attended networking events that seemed to be more about gossip than business. That first year, I paid most of the bills. Then the second. He never noticed. Or if he did, he never acknowledged it. If I brought it up, he'd joke, "Well, you're the career woman, aren't you?" I was moving up at my firm. I became a senior strategist, then creative lead. I managed teams, won campaigns. I worked insane hours and still found time to host dinner parties for Miles' family and their snobby friends. I memorized their customs. I practiced how to pronounce their vineyard names. I shopped at consignment stores to keep up with their fashion standards. I did everything to belong. It never mattered. Beatrice once handed me a folded linen napkin at a dinner party and said, "You'll get used to our traditions." Eventually. Charles Sr. would occasionally ask if I was still working, like my job was a hobby. Once, I was in a national magazine's 40 Under 40 feature for women in the media. He looked at the spread and said, "So they'll just put anyone in these things now?" Miles always stood back. Said I was too sensitive. That I should be grateful they let me in at all. I remember that word, grateful. It kept coming up. When things really started to unravel, it wasn't one big explosion. It was slow. Subtle. Like dry rot. I stopped confiding in him. He stopped pretending to care. We slept in the same bed, but lived in completely separate worlds. Then I found a receipt for a luxury hotel in the city. 2 nights. 1 king bed. His name, someone else's signature. The next day, a boutique invoice from a jewelry store, not the kind of place I'd ever shopped. He said it was a mistake. That the hotel was for a friend. That I was overreacting. 2 weeks later, I found her Instagram. Her name was Audrey. She was 26, working in interiors. She tagged him in a picture of a necklace I recognized from the invoice. The caption said, "Thank you for spoiling me, babe Blackheart." I confronted him. He didn't deny it. He just sighed and said, "It's not like I love her." I moved out the next morning. I didn't cry much after that. I was too tired. Too disgusted. What hurt wasn't just the cheating, it was the realization that the entire marriage had been a performance. That I'd been auditioning for acceptance from a family who never saw me as more than a mildly entertaining outsider. The divorce was quiet. Clean, legally speaking. I didn't ask for a dime. I wanted nothing from them, not money, not property. Just my name. Yes, I kept the Lawrence name. Legally and professionally. Why? Because I had built my entire career on that name. Every campaign I led, every introduction I made, every client pitch I nailed, it had Ava Lawrence on the card. I wasn't going to erase a decade of labor because a man betrayed me. That's when the idea started growing in my mind. What if I didn't just keep the name? What if I owned it? I quit my job. Started from scratch. Worked out of a tiny WeWork office on 29th Street. I built a brand consultancy that specialized in reimagining identities, corporate and personal. I worked 14-hour days. I ate leftover bagels. I hired 2 interns and paid them more than I paid myself. It was brutal. But it was mine. The breakthrough came during the pandemic. Businesses needed branding more than ever. Identity was shifting. Everyone wanted a fresh start. I had answers. By 2022, I was running a 6-figure operation. By 2023, I was managing clients in LA, Chicago, even London. I incorporated officially under the name Lawrence Media Group. And yes, I trademarked it. Every inch of it. With my name on every document. When the invitations went out for the city's big entrepreneur gala this spring, I was one of the main sponsors. My company's logo was on the banners, the gift bags, and the media wall. I gave a keynote speech on branding in the modern era. That's when Charles Sr. approached me. He was wearing a navy suit and holding a flute of champagne. He looked tired. Older than I remembered. Next to him stood Miles and Audrey, now very pregnant, in a sequin dress too tight for comfort. He raised his glass toward me and said, without blinking, "You should be grateful we even let you use our last name." I looked him straight in the eye, smiled, clinked my glass to his, and said, "That's funny. Because today, I made it my brand." The moment those words left my mouth, the silence around us felt heavy. You know that kind of stillness in a room when something real cuts through all the fake smiles and small talk? That. Charles Sr. didn't say a word. He blinked slowly, then tilted his head slightly, like he didn't quite understand how I'd turned his family's name into something so far outside his control. Miles looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. He wasn't used to me standing my ground. The Ava he married, the one who folded napkins just right and laughed at their country club jokes, was gone. He barely recognized me. Good. Audrey kept her hand on her stomach, nervously glancing between all of us, probably wishing she could disappear into the carpet. She hadn't said anything all evening, but I could feel her judging me, the way younger women sometimes do when they think they've won something. I didn't envy her. She had no idea what she was walking into. I didn't linger after that exchange. I had other people to speak to, deals to finalize, press to greet. But I caught them watching me from across the room more than once that night. Like I was a foreign creature, something unexpected. A threat. Maybe they finally realized I wasn't trying to fit into their world anymore, I was building my own. A week later, I got a letter. Not an email. A printed, embossed envelope on creamy Lawrence family stationery. It was from the Lawrence family attorney. A formal request to cease and desist using the Lawrence name in any commercial or branded capacity. I laughed when I opened it. They'd waited until I was public. Until the name meant something. They hadn't cared when I was struggling. When I was working unpaid weekends and taking client calls at midnight. Now that there was equity in it, now that Lawrence meant something without them attached, they wanted control again. I forwarded it to my lawyer, Anya. A fierce woman in her 50s who'd built her career representing women-led startups and female founders fighting for their place at the table. Anya read the letter and said, "Let them try." And they did try. They filed a preliminary injunction, claiming the use of the Lawrence name was damaging to the family's public reputation and legacy. What reputation, I thought. The one with the silent father-in-law who spent half his life undermining women? The legacy of men who married PR-savvy wives and made them disappear behind their own success? The court didn't even entertain it. I had every right to use the name. It was my legal name. I wasn't misrepresenting myself. I wasn't using their family crest or pretending to be affiliated with their investments. I had simply built something they could never imagine, a business that thrived on merit, not inheritance. After the case was dismissed, things got quiet, for a bit. But then, in true Lawrence fashion, they went behind the scenes. I lost a client I'd been working with for months. No warning. No explanation. A week later, I saw that same client featured in a partnership campaign with Miles. His new media firm, which was clearly a front using my old contacts and language from my pitch deck. Someone must have sent him my materials. It stung, I won't lie. Not because I needed the money, I was doing fine, but because it was so small. So petty. I wanted to respond. I drafted emails, thought about posting on social media, even considered contacting the client directly to confront them. But I didn't. I waited. Instead, I doubled down. Hired 2 new people. Put out a statement highlighting the women behind my company's success. Highlighted our values: transparency, resilience, independence. I made sure the next few campaigns I touched were so sharp, so memorable, so undeniably powerful that even those trying to discredit me had to sit in silence. And it worked. Not only did the client come back 3 months later, apologizing, by the way, but they brought others with them. I didn't say a word about what had happened. I didn't have to. Word got around. The truth always does. People started reaching out. Not just clients, but other women. Women who had married into respectable families only to find themselves suffocated, micromanaged, belittled. Women who had been told they should be grateful to be included. I got DMs, emails. Even handwritten notes from women in Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Vermont. They shared their stories of erasure. Of shrinking. Of slowly realizing they were living in someone else's narrative. They told me I had inspired them to rewrite their own. That was when I knew I had done something bigger than build a company. I had struck a nerve. A deep one. Still, I wasn't prepared for what came next. Because the moment a woman carves out power for herself without permission, the people who used to benefit from her silence start getting scared. And scared people do reckless things. One Thursday afternoon, I came into the office and found 2 of my team members looking shaken. A man claiming to be an independent journalist had come by, asking questions. He wanted to know about my finances, my marriage, my past, stuff no one had ever cared about until now. Turns out, someone had been feeding him anonymous tips. And those tips included twisted versions of old stories, that I had used Miles for money, I paid our bills, that I had stolen the idea from my agency, I built it from nothing, even that I had fabricated parts of my background. It was a smear campaign. Plain and simple. But again, I didn't panic. I responded the same way I always do. I got ahead of it. I sat down with a real journalist from a respected publication, a woman I trusted, and told my story myself. The real story. Every gritty, uncomfortable, painfully honest detail. They published a feature on women reclaiming their identities after toxic relationships, and made me the centerpiece. The headline read, "She took his name and built her empire." My inbox exploded. So did theirs, I imagine. That article did more than shut down the whispers. It shifted the conversation. Suddenly, I wasn't just a woman with a brand, I was a symbol of reinvention. And that terrified the hell out of the Lawrences. But the thing about fear is, it makes people predictable. And I still had one card left to play. The article made waves. Not just locally, but nationally. A producer from a morning show reached out. Then a panel request from a Women in Business conference in DC. Then an invitation to speak at a private event hosted by a major VC fund looking to back female-led startups. Suddenly, I was no longer just Ava Lawrence. I was Ava Lawrence, the founder who reclaimed her name, her story, and built something no one could take away. And what came next wasn't loud. It wasn't even public. It was a handwritten note. Slipped into an envelope and left at my office desk one morning. From Beatrice. I recognized the handwriting immediately, those tidy, loopy letters. For a moment, I expected something venomous. Another thinly veiled threat. But it wasn't that. It was short. Ava, we didn't see you clearly. I see that now. I may not say this again, but I respect what you've built. Regardless of what happened between you and Miles, what you've done stands on its own. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it up and put it in my drawer. Not because I forgave her. Not even because I believed it came from a place of real humility. But because I understood what it was, a white flag. A quiet concession from a woman who had once made me feel invisible at her dinner table. That same week, Miles emailed me. It was just one line, "Congratulations. You win." I didn't reply. Because it wasn't a game. And even if it were, I'd stopped playing the moment I walked out of that house years ago. The real win was waking up each day with nothing to prove and everything to build. It was watching young women walk into my office confident in their ideas. It was mentoring interns from Queens, from Scroon Lake, from places where people didn't grow up knowing what venture capital or brand equity meant. And the final piece of the story? That came on a quiet Thursday in early May, when I got a call from my lawyer, Anya. She told me that a holding company tied to the Lawrence family was attempting to trademark a boutique branding offshoot using the name Lawrence Collective. They were trying to ride the wave. Piggyback off the name after I had pumped it full of meaning, success, and goodwill. I had already secured every derivative, every spelling, every possible commercial application of Lawrence under my umbrella. Every legal route was protected under my LLC. Anya laughed when she said it, they didn't do their homework. I had. 4 years. Their application was denied. And with that, the door shut. Not with a bang, but with a soft, irreversible click. I didn't need to humiliate them. I didn't want revenge that left a trail of destruction. I wanted justice. And I got it. I redefined the name they once used as a gatekeeping tool. I turned it into a beacon, for women, for second acts, for anyone who's ever been told, be grateful we let you in. Not only did I get in, I rebuilt the whole damn house. And now, I hold the keys.